needs to acknowledge the president's effort and his determination to deal with this thing. But if you look deeper, we're now dealing with the symptoms rather than the underlying causes of this particular problem. And if you look at over the years, we've had institutional failure driven by corrupt and unethical public officials. One has not asked, how did these officials end up in these public positions? Because many of them are not selected on meritocracy. They are selected because of nepotism and favoritism. Many of these public organizations are run people who are really not the right people to run them. So although the president might be dealing with the symptoms, unless we're able to put into place public officials who operate independently, transparently, and accountable to the Kenyan public, we would continue to have these mediocre officials who, once they get into office, do not see themselves as public servants working for the Kenyan people, but see themselves simply there to enrich themselves, to introduce corrupt practices, to employ people from their own ethnic groups. And this is the rot that the president needs to deal with by, first of all, making sure that from now onwards we employ people who can do that job because of their own competence and ethical position. Unless we're able to do that, we'll be doing this firefighting every other few months. But there are many institutions, when you look at the people who are there, you would wonder how they even function, because they don't deserve to be in those positions. They're not competent. They're not ethical. We need to change that, because we cannot develop as a country if we do not have strong institutions based on the rule of law and led by people who are public servants there to serve the Kenyan public. And I think whatever else we do is purely just touching the surface and not going deep into this particular problem.
And when you said that some of these officials are not there independently, they're not independent as they should, what do you mean? Because most of them are appointees of the president.
Yes, the president can appoint from a huge pool of highly qualified Kenyans. Does it mean that there are only few people who can be selected for those positions? Don't we have the right and qualified people who can do these things? Many private institutions are run very efficiently, and we're one of the most competitive countries in the region. Our top managers are working in the neighboring countries and beyond. So the question is, if you have a strong, principled, and competent leader, they would resist interference. They would resist political interferences. But now, many of these people seem to be agents of bigger political figures. They are puppets who are controlled from another office, which is a very clear indication that, first of all, they were not there to serve the public. They were to serve their personal interest, limited group interest.
And the president is not able to read this through this at the point of appointments?
Well, I have seen some very qualified, very competent people being appointed. But even the other day, when you look at some of the two last big chairpersons who've been appointed to some of these political public parastatal organizations, there are people who've been rejected by the public. There are people with kind of not a very good reputation.
What are you talking about?
Well,
several.
If you read the last appointments, you see that.
No, you said two.
Yeah, at least two people.
What are you talking about?
One was a cabinet secretary, a former cabinet secretary who was thrown out for incompetence.
Rashid Echesa?
Yes, and the other one is another famous failed politician from Nairobi. So you don't expect characters like that
to manage
with,
the system
with backgrounds, terrible backgrounds.
Look at Kenya Civil Aviation Authority. I mean, the people who the president appointed to the board know nothing about civil aviation. None of them. In other words, if somebody went to IATA and they are going to discuss matters pertaining to the city, I mean, you see what we are saying, Sami, the president can actually hire people who worked with him. That is within the constitution. But can't he hire clever people? Can't he hire quality material? Can't he hire people who are like exactly like my sister here, Gladys Sholay? Mtu anasimama anasema ni mbaya ni mbaya. We can't do that. Why is it that we are rewarding mediocrity in our country?